Almost Famous Enough is a proud sponsor of Music Day in Canada. Music Day in Canada is a national campaign and celebration created by the Lemon Foundation to spotlight the people, places, and communities that power Canadian music. Through live events, artist showcases, community partnerships, and digital storytelling, the campaign uplifts Canadian talent and supports the sustainability of local music ecosystems. The campaign is open to everyone, from venues and artists to brands and fans, with each region contributing its own voice to the national story. Check out musicdayincanada.com or look for the link in our podcast notes of each episode. If you are a young, aspiring songwriter, or old, aspiring songwriter for that matter, or singer, or band, if you have aspirations to be part of the world of music that you can visibly see, then at some point you start thinking about how to take it out of your bedroom or basement and out in front of people. And you learn very quickly there is a portion of the world you think you might actually be taking it directly in front of people. But in most cases, you are putting yourself in front of gatekeepers, the ones who decide what goes in front of the people that book bands and performances, the people that play music on the radio and so forth. At that precise moment, you are changing your musical journey by adding the required component of awareness. Awareness. How do you get noticed? How do you get heard? If you were getting Simon Cowelled in the moment, you'd be getting asked, do you have a plan? I'm oversimplifying this entire career stream. I get it. But publicity is about the plan, a strategy. Jen Fritz is a publicist, founder of music marketing and promotional agency Fritz Media, and a 20-year veteran of the music business. Jen has worked multiple genres with artists at every stage of their career, from indie grassroots to rostered talent, with the seminal Better Than Indie But Not Quite Major network records, see Sarah McLachlan, and industry giant Sony. She provides the theory that it is a relational industry. It's who you know, how you get to know them, and understanding what everyone needs to be successful. Think of all the industries that are not music, but consumed with gaining public awareness, and what a difference a hands-on publicist might make. This is not a how-to, a day-in-the-life career day conversation with publicity. It's an open door to the West Wing of the music business through kind and honest lenses. My name is Glen Erickson. This is Almost Famous Enough. Thanks for spending your time with us. This is Jen Fritz. You have to consent? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
The 3, 2, 1 count. Well, thank you so much, Jen, for taking the time to be here. It's a real pleasure, obviously, to have you on here and to talk to you. I'm obviously greatly interested in all parts of the music business and the span and pulling the veil back. And this is the area that you work and live in is like one of my favorite areas. So Jen of Fritz Media, since I think I looked up 2009, right? So publicity, media, PR, I think you describe it as a boutique music publicity and digital marketing.
That's just a nice way of saying small. Right?
It is. I've worked in digital agencies forever. We call ourselves boutique all the time, just so people don't think we're corporate. Most of the time, we try to spin it with a nice word, right? But also my peer in the music podcasting space with the FM podcast, which is great.
Yes.
And I hope we get a chance to talk about a little bit here as well. So I think actually let's just start right there. That's a better place for me to start.
Okay.
Obviously all this time that it's like in our world right now where we're starting to get suspicious of the companies that supposedly did one thing and now we think they're just mining us for data. Like they may be a streaming network like Netflix, but the truth is they could probably sell all kinds of different data to people, right? And so you being a publicist working in the PR world, forming relationships with both industry people and agents and managers as well as the artists and all these different facets, you've been able to mine some relationships and some data yourself. I'm assuming, can I make the assumption that might have been part of the premise for starting the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tale as old as time in that it started during COVID, as most
Yeah.
things do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It started just as an idea for me to do something creative outside of my job, and I used to work in radio, and I really missed doing it, to be honest. And I actually didn't realize how much I missed it until I started doing it, and I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot how much I actually like being behind a microphone and how much I like, creating audio and doing it from start to finish and putting a show together. I really liked it. And then it began to percolate a bit, and I was like, well, I can use this as a marketing tool for Fritz Media, which is my digital marketing and public relations company in the music industry. And then I also had this other piece, which was education. And I really think that it's something that is lacking so much in our industry right now, and that is the lack of digital literacy with artists. I deal with it every day, just with my clients. It's an industry that has become the tech industry, and it is so fast moving that it's hard to keep up. So I thought, well, why don't I just use it for that as well? You can learn about all kinds of things. And it's also, I can talk to people that can teach me stuff too. Like, there's a lot of things I don't know about in the music industry, right? So it was kind of a cheat for me to do that.
That's a great cheat, actually. Well, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Literally, I'm looking at the very last bullet point. I had, what did publicists do during the pandemic when all the bands were going out on the road releasing records? So there's my answer.
We were panicking, is what
already we're panicking,
we
and some people were starting podcasts. I think that's a great point about the educational part. I was, it is of note to me, like your podcast, the FM podcast, is very topical, right?
Yeah.
And the titles, make it very clear what the guest and you are going to be talking about specifically, which I think is really great. Because podcasts do get used a lot this day. They get pitched to bigger businesses as a marketing tool in a similar way to how you described it can help the bottom line for you in a different way. But yeah, I think that true value point is really interesting for you to bring up about the lack of digital literacy. I seem to feel like, did you attend and coach or teach, mentor at the Project Wild boot camps? I thought I remember you being a part of those on the name and the guest list, because I was always on the committee. I sort of chaired that committee, and then I'd build the booklets and all that stuff. I'm sure I've printed Jen's name out on these things before, but
yes, I did.
And I remember
before when it was the Peak Performance
Peak Performance
project, as well,
and what a big part of those it was to try to bring artists into that empowerment phase of really understanding what that was. I remember even partway through, because as soon as you said that, that's immediately sparked for me the conversation with the committee when they're like, because they had these challenges that the artists would have to do that were like career related and contextual, hopefully, whether it's like build a cool merch thing. It could be as simple as a challenge as that. But I remember when we transitioned some where I was saying we need to have a challenge that's related specifically to them learning how to use their social media properly and to start to read their analytics and to dig into understand how to target people and not throw their dollars away on Facebook ads and stuff like that. So, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now,
and it's just gotten a lot harder and a lot more difficult to understand. Like, if you're an artist and you look at all of the different ways that you can market yourself, you really kind of don't know where to start, right? And I just gave this talk in Victoria to a bunch of musicians, and I went through TikTok and just put in the search like digital marketing ideas, how to market your music, and just the plethora of people with different ideas for how to do that. And you that's on every platform. You can do that on Instagram, you can do that on YouTube, and you'll just have all these people telling you exactly how to market your music. So you can look at that and go, oh my God, that's so overwhelming. Or you can go, oh my God, look at all these different ways I can, find out to market myself. Like, you think about, we didn't have social media. Like, when I started, there was no social media when I started doing publicity, right? So my job was a lot easier. So, but also, like I say to musicians, you have this platform where you can reach out to everybody, right? So try to see the good side of it, because you could be like in the 90s where you didn't have that. So it is, I recognize that it's made my job extremely difficult in a lot of ways, but it is also a good thing. You have a way to reach out to people like right away, which is pretty cool.
I love this because we've literally just danced through 3 of my 7 main bullet points.
I love it.
And so this is the way I love, because I love when you're the interviewer. I get to say this because you're familiar, and all of a sudden you're like, shit, which way do I go first?
It's hard, I know.
But that's totally okay. That's what this is about. I just love what you're saying, because like my day job is like helping run a digital marketing agency. And it really comes down to, and it's amazing how much time I spend even coaching the people who try to sell this stuff, who don't fully understand. The concept we often use is this graph between what we call performance marketing and awareness marketing, right? And I think it's so crucial for bands to understand that, because they really just start out doing performance marketing, which is like, I have a show coming up, I'm going to buy X amount of dollars of, ads on whatever this campaign perhaps, or I'm going to, tailor a little campaign around a string of shows or whatever they're going to do to promote a release of some sort or a single. But that's just performance, right? It just makes the spike go up. And as soon as you stop pumping into it, this spike goes back to where it started. Whereas awareness, the constant pumping into who you are and your brand and stuff makes that baseline raise, like on a graph, hopefully, if you're doing it well and doing it right, so that all those little spikes don't go right to the bottom, but they stay with that line. So it's a tough concept for people. And like you said, I think the speed at which it changes is overwhelming. What isn't overwhelming is if they started to, like you said, went into just 2 of those platforms and watched those little tutorials, they would start to realize they're kind of saying the same thing, just contextual to, I'm in Spotify or I'm in YouTube or whatever it may be. But I mean, especially YouTube, the amount of information they provide to help you is incredible.
Same with Spotify. Spotify has the Spotify for Artists platform, which is incredible. And so many artists don't know about it or don't understand the capabilities that are within it. So many artists like that I work with, when, they either know about Spotify for Artists and they've been using it for years, or they're just like, what's that? And I'm like, well, how do you update your Spotify? Like, this is how you do it. But so many artists don't do the simple things like put their bio in their Spotify, or, add their lyrics or include their show dates, or highlight a certain release. And these are all things that you can do within Spotify, right? And that's simple. That's just like the base. That's the bare minimum basics, right?
And would you say artists are, is it a fair assumption to say they're generally afraid of data? Like across it, like they don't think they can understand it a lot of the time, or do you find they're kind of warm to it?
They're afraid of what they don't know. So, I think that's most people. If you don't feel like you're educated on a certain subject, you might get a little tense about it, or maybe even defensive or something. Do you know what I mean? Mean, it is, digital marketing isn't easy, especially using Meta, which is the hardest platform in the world to use. And I hate it so much. And they
change it every 5 months too, change the rules.
Yeah, or just like, restrict your ad account for no reason, which is what's currently happening to me. So, It's
terrible. It's the worst.
It's horrible. Like, it's horrible, but I need it to run ads. So, I understand from that perspective, it can seem so hard. But at the same time, like anything in life, if you have to have a certain amount of curiosity, and the internet is available for you to figure things out. You know, I learned how to change my car battery by watching a video on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like there's so much. So if I don't know how to do something, then, you know, you can find a way to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think the problem is there's a variety of different ways, especially with digital marketing. It's like, don't do that because this is wrong, or don't do this, you know, so that can be hard.
And there's so many artists. Obviously, the great swell of artists is in that grassroots category, right? Of sort of size. So they're the ones who are still trying to, well, they're essentially forced to do it all themselves. There's nobody wanting to jump on board to do it for them. They don't have the money or income streams yet to pay other people. So I think that's where, you know, you kind of get this mass chaos of this large group of people who are all trying to figure out the same thing to get that little leg up, and the pressure of feeling they have to do it themselves. It reminds me, like you said, like kind of the throwback to what, you know, before internet days of PR and publicity was like. But it reminds me, because the data is everything right now. I've gone to a couple of marketing conferences where they're like, the people who know how to use the data are winning essentially right now. And when I think about that in the music industry, how important that is, especially for artists who are grassroots. I just remember like the early 2000s when you would be overwhelmed about, you know, I finally landed a show at your favorite club in town, and now you realize they want you to make your own posters, and someone would freak out, and then you'd just go, and you couldn't pay somebody who made really great posters. So you would just find somebody who was really eager, you know, who was young and had that skill and was just thrilled to be part of the music thing that was happening, and would make posters for you. And I feel like it's kind of similar. There's people around who are really smart, younger than us, who this comes to really naturally. I often advise people as well, like, you can find people who might just be excited to help you out and, you know, help you find some success online. So
no, that's really good advice. And I often use that same advice for things like making videos, content creation. Everybody's got a friend that is really great with making videos, or just is better at it than you, or they can take better photos than you. Like, so until you can afford it, you know, maybe just throw your friend a little bit of money to help you create content.
Yeah, exactly.
It's super easy. And I mean, there are a lot of artists, and I feel for all of them right now, that just aren't comfortable doing that front-facing sort of, you know,
content creator job.
Yeah, like, oh, what, I'm a musician and I have to now talk to the camera as well. And so I understand that it can be hard, but as I always say, if you want to be a musician in 2025, that's part of the job. And unfortunately, I have bad news for you. You have to do it. So, you know, you can do something else if you want, but that just is part of the job right now.
100%. 100%. That's great advice. Okay, well, so we've dipped a couple to the back when things started. So let's just go back to where things started. So my curiosity is how somebody becomes a publicist, right? and first, full disclosure is the first publicist I actually asked was Ken Beatty of Killbeat to come on, but that's because Ken was my publicist when I was in a band. So
he's a great publicist.
He's incredible, but he wanted nothing to do with being in front of the camera. I think his words were, "I'm happy to get my artists. My job is to put them in front of the camera." He wanted no part of it, which is totally fair. But he's a sweet man, of course.
I love Ken.
But I had quickly discovered when I was in a band, and you get to that phase where people start talking about you might need to build a team. You know, that's the next level. One of my great discoveries was I became convinced after working with Ken that really the publicist I thought was the first person I should start paying money to outside of what I could do for myself that would have the most immediate impact and value. So I've always had a real high regard for the job of PR, but I don't know how many people listening. Sometimes I think the media, the only exposure regular people have to what a publicist is might be even like the TV version of like, they're the ones who do the campaigns to try to like, you know, cool over some celebrity gaffe for their celebrity client who did something horrible in the news, and now they have to try to like clean all that up or whatever. So there's those kind of perceptions about people who do the publicity or the media management role. So I know you went to school, you got a communications degree, like a broadcast thing. So what was Jen's goal at the start of all this? What did you think you were working towards? Was it radio? Is that what the goal was?
Anybody that works in the music industry will tell you they got into the music industry because they love music, right? And my career started with radio, and I got into radio because I love music and also because I loved radio. I really like audio. I'm somebody that like listened to CBC all the time, always had it on in the background. I just like that medium. I always have. And, you know, I have been listening to podcasts since the first one started. It's like my favorite thing. I love it. I hate
that be Grant Lawrence's? Is that Grant Lawrence's podcast on CBC Radio 3?
He was one of them, yeah.
He was one of them, yeah.
Yeah, they were very quick to be, CBC was very quick to be into
they were very progressive.
In the podcast space, they really are. And yeah, so I've just always liked it. I don't like how they're moving towards more video now. It's really quite upsetting to me. But yeah, I mean, I got into it just because of a love of music, and I'm a talker. And being a talker is good for radio, and it's also good for being a publicist. So, you know.
So true.
So, and I mean, it's being a publicist is a relationships job. It's just about, you know, making sure you know the right people, you know the people that you're pitching your artists to, you know which people will like certain type of music or certain artists, and yeah, that's really what it's all about is essentially relationships, and, you know, keeping those relationships intact. I mean, that is a lot harder now than it was when I started. When I started, there was only a handful of, like, I used to like phone people and pitch them, like in the olden times, and, you know, like call up Stuart Durdane at the Vancouver Sun in the Vancouver province and be like, yo, can you do this? You know, and, you know, now, unfortunately, with the state of journalism, there's less and less music journalists across this country. And there's also, you know, blogs now to contend with, and those blogs are all over the world. So it's a lot harder. And then on top of that, you put in like playlist curators. It just becomes a lot harder to keep track of those people. But
yeah. Well, I mean, the word relations is right in the public relations thing. And I think it's no secret to anybody who's been even a little bit of a foot into the music scene, just how it feels like it quickly is a small community, and the who you know kind of cliches ring very, very true. Yeah. So I guess one of my curiosities when you were saying that is, did you, like, what part of it, how do I phrase this one? There's a smarminess, a sliminess that people feel when about the pitching sometimes, like, and I don't mean the other perception, I mean your own perception. I think this is what keeps some people from certain aspects of the music industry, right? If you're that feeling of like, you know, pitching makes people uncomfortable. So was that just, would you say like that I'm a talker, that relational side of you, is that something that just kind of made it easy to get over that hump and just kind of go right into feeling comfortable in the area of both building an authentic relationship while you're also pitching all the time?
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of, you know, when I started, started in the music industry, I left radio and I started doing radio promo at network. And so that's kind of where I started doing what would, you know, essentially become publicity down the road. But, you know, I knew how to do that because when I worked in radio, I was a music director at a lot of the stations that I worked at. So I knew what the other side was. I knew what the promo people sounded like pitching me. So it was easy for me to pitch them because I had been doing it, right? And there's nothing that people in radio like talking about more than radio. So all I had to do was just, call them up and start doing the latest radio goss. That's all they wanted. And then you just, BS for a bit. And then you go, okay, by the way, I have this song. Can you give it a listen? And that's essentially how I did all of my pitching when I started in publicity. Same thing, you just get to know these people. You just BS for a while, and then you're like, okay, by the way, I have something else for you, And
it gets easier when some of those people stick around a long time. Like I like, this is where I'm not plugged in like I used to be, obviously, but I do know for the whole span of when I was aspiring to be in bands and then playing in a touring band and then doing some of the work afterwards, the same names, the same people were around, right? So it made it a lot easier where you could call them up and probably then, you literally know who their kids are, and you can ask how their kids are doing or something after all that time.
No, so it's so true.
You moved to, so you start doing the publicity thing at Network, and that, I assume is that like early 2000s? Is that?
Yeah, early 2000s. So I was at Network doing radio promo in about 2004, and then 2003, 2004, and then a couple guys that I worked at Network with left to start their own company called Frontside Promotions Group.
Yeah.
And so I left and I headed up their publicity department with having very little experience, but we were just we're going to do this, guys. It's going to be great. And it was a company, we were one of the first a la carte companies. So it was, this is back in the day where everybody tried to get signed to a major label, but we were indie artists, you can hire us just to do radio promo. You can hire us just to do publicity, which, happens all the time now. But back in the day, you generally would have had to have a label to do those things.
Yeah, that only happened. Yeah, that only happened if you signed the entire deal, right? That was... And
they would have all those things in place for you already, right?
There weren't many boutique shops back in the late 90s.
I mean, now there's
early 2000s.
Everybody has label services now, right? So,
exactly.
In that day, back in the day, we didn't. And so we were basically a startup, and it was fun, and I learned a lot. That's for sure. I'm surprised.
You made it sound a little Jerry Maguire there with the whole we're just gonna go off and do it ourselves now.
It wasn't. Yeah, I hadn't been at Network that long for it to be that epic. I don't think.
Okay.
But
you weren't the Renee Zellweger of
I mean, Frontside. I can be if you want, but.
So we touched on this then, and this is where I think it's of great curiosity because of what was happening then. And I don't try to over nostalgic my conversations, but the difference between what publicity and media generating was even in the early 2000s, and then at one point you get to work with Sony, I think around 2011 or something, you said in there, and and if you think about three pillars of that evolution from Network to Frontside and what it was then to that 10-year gap to when you're at Sony and how things had started to change thanks to the internet to now, which is even post-pandemic version of online. Those are three pretty significant shifts in a short span of time in how this happens. And the early 2000s, we were printing shit all the time.
Yeah.
What did it look like? What is the biggest thing, if you can characterize it, from what the job meant then about promoting albums and tours, which was still kind of the bread and butter of how things worked and the cycle, so to speak. What was the biggest shift? Was it just the fact that you had these long established platforms and things were in really tactile, for lack of a better term, things were printed, things were scheduled on the radio. Like, what was the biggest shift that happened out of that time to like your internet time at Sony that you would observe?
I would say, like, back then there was a lot more traditional media outlets, a lot more, like, I would say, like, at every newspaper across Canada at least had an arts writer. At least had, like, they may not have had a music writer, but they had an arts writer that would cover it. And that doesn't exist anymore because we know the state of journalism, right? It's just, there's cuts everywhere and it's really sad. And music journalism is suffering for it. I love music journalism myself. So yeah, it's really sad. It's just a lack of people that are qualified to do it, and more people that are not qualified to do it that are doing it. You can just like read a number of blogs to see, like, anybody can do it, but it's not easy, right? And back then I had to like mail CDs to every person I was pitching. So that's a biggest change, is like, you know, digital delivery. I don't have to do, like, that's a cost I don't even have to deal with anymore.
What a change in overhead. And not worry about all these postal strikes either that are going to absolutely ruin your scheduling.
Yeah, just like stuffing envelopes full of like CDs and one sheets and making sure they get to the journalist in the town that your artist is touring in before, like, with enough lead time so that you can pitch them, right?
Did you know I still have a drawer that I have never really cleaned out that still has a bunch of padded envelopes that I used to slide the CD? So that drawer hasn't been cleaned out in like 15 years for sure.
I still have some, I'm sure, in my storage space. So that's like one thing I do not miss. And it's a lot easier to, you know, just send a link now. Thank God. Yeah.
So like there was a transition, right? Of, you know, we were talking about Radio 3 even, and like them getting early on podcasts. But, you know, what started happening, the decline started even then. Like print started in decline well before other things started in decline. And so you started to lose access to the exposure that you needed, right? The building awareness for the artists that you're representing, for the places they were going to play. And that power, it felt like it kind of started shifting to music blogs, kind of started to have quite a bit of power. The people that were writing them started getting invited to be like judges at Polaris even, or right. So there was this little bit of a shift in power that I kind of noticeably observed that felt like natural, because it kind of came with the power that the internet was generating more and more. I guess one of my main curiosities for people listening is, you know, we've gone through some evolutions now over the last 15 years of what the internet is. What I feel like the blogs aren't sourcing that power anymore, but I don't know if that's the right perception. I'm curious what your observation is about where they don't write. People don't seem to write about albums or music that way anymore, even if they are blogging about something. So I'm just curious what your observation is of where that lies, where people are going to kind of generate awareness from quote unquote curators or tastemakers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different places you can go depending on, you know, your style of music or what your intention is. You know, there still is a lot of people writing great music journalism out there. And I think, you know, the thing about artists always want actual editorial and actual feedback on their music, you know, whether it's good or bad, that's what they want. So, you know, as a publicist, my goal is to get you actual editorial. You know, sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes they'll just take the press release I wrote and copy and paste it into, you know, their blog, and that happens. But, you know, we are always trying to get people who actually listen to the music and actually write words about it. And that can help you, you know, once you get that, let's say I got you a song review on a blog, And you can use that quote to promote your music. You can tell other people about it. Like, once you get a publicist, your job isn't over. You still have to do promotion on your end as well.
Yeah.
So you have to take that publicity that you got and tell people, like, go on your Instagram story, or, you know, post about it on Twitter, or do a TikTok or whatever. And just, you know, you have to create part of the buzz. Another thing that it does, especially if you're an indie artist just starting out, is you always have to think about someone discovering your music and then Googling you. And what those reviews do is really help your SEO. So, you know, that's another thing. That's just, you know, those are two things that where, you know, publicity is very helpful. Now, the blogs out there may not, you know, have the impact that Pitchfork did back in the day, or, you know, Pitchfork even has now, you know, or Stereogum, or any of those, you know, blogs that were so popular, and still are. But, you know, it is somebody that's willing to listen to your music and write about it, right? So that's what we want. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does. I mean, I think it raises a good point, because kind of what you're alluding to, like that editorial review or something like that, is just, it's far more organic feeling, right? It's an actual person taking the time to engage with your music, sit with their thoughts about it, and then put their own version of an honest response or reaction to what that is in writing or in video, or some version where they put it out there for the public, which is very different than what I think feels very like disheartening to a lot of artists, which is the version out there that is, you know, if I put a whole bunch of content out there, you know, I'm not even just putting it out there specifically for someone to engage with. I'm being told to just put it out there in volume and in regular consistency, because that will trigger the algorithms properly. That will help my search engine optimization by being found easier. But none of that is about the human connection, or that artistic connection with somebody. It's just about driving numbers up and creating better chance and opportunity. I think that's what feels very disheartening and soul-sucking to a lot of artists who approach it. So, I mean, I guess I say all that to say it's nice, you know, to hear about, you know, the focus still to find somebody and people out there who are interacting and engaging with the actual music, that, you know, and putting some version of a response back out there.
Yeah, and I mean, I still, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, but, you know, and sometimes I forget, and I just, like, I get really excited by, you know, some of my artists who, like, we get something really big come in and they're so excited, and I forget about that sometimes, that it is, you know, a really big deal, or somebody will write really nice words about, you know, that person's song, and I forget how much that can mean to somebody. And, you know, publicity too, I should say, is just one piece of the pie when it comes to, like, marketing your music. Now, you said that, you know, it generally is the first service that a artist or a band will spend their money on. You know, that used to be the case. Now it's either a publicist or digital marketing dollars, or a little bit of both, right? Like they'll either decide, or they'll do a mix of both, right? You know, which makes sense. There's not a lot of money to go around these days, so I totally get that. But I always have to remind artists that just because you have a publicist, that's not it. Like, you are acting as the label, right? So there's a lot of different departments at the label, and publicity is just one of them. So you still have to do a lot of work on your end.
It's one of the layers, right? And you just can't afford to only work on one layer at a time anymore. You have to work on all of them, it seems, at the same time. Maybe that's what it always was, but maybe there just was a different dream of having people do it for you in the earlier days that feels a little harder to achieve. I'm curious, like, you sort of referenced, like, when you still get excited about artists. You've been doing this for a really long time. So I'm going to ask you a two-side of the coin question, and I'll be honest with you, Jen. Like, notorious for just making this up when I go along. So this wasn't some premeditated thing. But so I'm curious, on one side of the coin, what's some of the biggest maybe wins or the biggest sort of exciting things that have happened in your career with artists that you kind of look back and you're like, that was a really cool thing to be part of as a publicist?
I could do like a recent one right now. I'm working with an artist by the name of Dust Quain, and they're a drag performer as well as a musician. And this is the second record that I've done for Dust. And just watching the star rise, I can feel it already. We are only on single one for the record, and it just feels big, and their excitement makes me excited. Like I feel like, just that I can't explain it. It honestly makes me feel like I just started being a publicist again. Like sometimes you get so jaded in this industry where you're just like, ugh, you can always tell someone in the music industry at a concert, we're standing at the back, right? But that's not me really. I'm a music fan.
Arms crossed.
Yeah. but it just really made me genuinely excited about music again, just to see something like start at the bottom. Not at the bottom, but just like they started like just releasing music and didn't know what would happen. We're genuinely scared. And now to just be like, people are really excited. So, it is really exciting.
But that's kind of what it's about, right? Like that. And it's kind of a vicious cycle because, we live with music every day. We have our loves. Everybody has their loves, whether you know what's going on in the business, whether you know even how to put two notes together or not. Like everybody has their loves of music. There's a nice baseline. But then there's this excitement cycle that's a part of the music business. And we try to manufacture that when you're in the business really hard. You try to figure out how to capture lightning in a bottle. And if anybody really sits on a panel and talks about it, they're usually the ones to say, I don't actually know, man. I don't really know how to capture. But that's what we try to do, is generate that excitement for people and the things that we get excited about. So I think it's cool that you get to still have those experiences and
same. Yeah.
There's not too thick of a wall to get through for that. I've been having fun in that my daughter participates on this podcast with me. We do like a little post epilogue section,
cute.
Talking about that. She listens afterwards, and then we talk about it, and then we share, because our thing is to share music. So I'm between seasons as we're recording this, and so we've just been producing a little mini series of just sharing music, and it's I think everybody needs it in their life, that like share music with people, let somebody else get you excited about music, about new things, and listen to new things, and even if listening to new things is about old things. So
that's really true. Like all of the young people in my life, like I don't have kids, but I have a lot of nieces, right? So that's the thing I always share with them is, I'm just the cool aunt that likes music, right? And we can go to concerts together. And I am actually genuinely amazed how much they listen to old music. How much they're into just into bands from the 90s that I loved in the 90s. And like to be able to be like, oh my God, have you heard of this band? Like, yeah. Or just like they know all the words to a Liz Phair song inexplicably. Like I don't know how. So
my son is he's older and university age, and has never sort of had the same kind of unique passion music wise that maybe I connect with my daughter around. But he loves his music. So the funny part to me is, because he's never been a rock and roll guy, but he's been getting into the gym with his friends, and he is influenced by their playlists, and he'll come back to me. And the other day he was like, it's like he's testing me to see if I know who these artists are. And then I think I might actually, for a moment I'm scared, like, cause I don't want to get it wrong and he might stump me. But then he starts playing it for me, and I'm like, that's Seven Nation Army by No White Stripes. Dude, like, give me a hard one. Like, they're just listening to heavy music in the gym. I didn't get too stumped. But I love if like younger people do connect with something that they feel. I think inherently they're feeling like it connects with something that they already know and love and have experienced, and then they're finding it, which is no different than going vintage shopping or something like that. So I think that's pretty
reading
cool.
a book, right? Like, it's like art's always there, right? So
it's timeless.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jenna, let me ask you on the other side of the coin, though. In this career, you get to see a lot of stuff, and I don't know whether you've got to be part of the cliche I described earlier, where you've had to like do the scramble. Holy shit! I need to like start fixing what somebody said or something like that in the media. But I'm curious if you've had times that were like things that you saw or events that happened that ever made you be like, yeah, I don't know if it's changing too much, if I still want to be a part of this, or whether that has never happened for you.
I've been lucky to not have any huge blunders or things I had to cover up with my clients. I mean, there have been some things like politically motivated things that we kind of had to smooth over, but for the most part, I haven't had to deal with that. I work with artists that are, fairly indie, and if they were, I do a pretty good check when I start working with them and, make sure that our values align, and that, they're not going to do something that I'm going to have to, make excuses for, or potentially just end our working relationship because of it, which can also happen, right?
And especially lose sleep over, which is not fun.
No, it's definitely not. I mean, I think artists, especially the younger generation, is fairly aware of how cameras are always on. And I really think that affects them in a big way, like in ways that we won't realize until down the road. But I think that's, maybe part of the reason why the youth don't drink as much. I mean, the price too, but can you imagine like all of the drunken,
I can't,
things that you did, and being scared that somebody was recording it? Like,
I don't know if there's any of my old music buddies that we haven't had this conversation. Right? Of what that would be like. I was always the sober guy. I didn't drink. So smart. I got the firsthand observation though of how things escalated, how things spun, the things I've seen, and that's not excluding me from all kinds of stupid behavior while I was sober, for Pete's sake.
Of course.
But we all share that sentiment. I'm wondering I'm hoping this is okay to ask. Like, doing the podcast, we talked at the start about how you and I were like, you get the opportunity also to hear from people and learn while you talk to people in a podcast. And just doing my first season, it's consistently come up. I've had conversations with females, artists generally, but not just, some people in the industry. And inevitably there's a conversation about gender bias and inequality and inequity, I should say, even in things. And I'm curious because I have an observation, but I'm very aware that I'm a dude making this observation, which is I've known far more female publicists than I have male, just in a very generic, super generic observation. And I'm wondering if that's accurate or not, and if there's a reason why perhaps women are really great at publicity. I don't know. And I'm wondering, most of all, is in your part of the industry that you encounter, I'm wondering if you encounter the similar things a lot, or because you've had this span of time you've been able to work and have this career, if you've seen any shifts or changes in that, if that's fair to ask.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think that being a publicist is just a really gendered, for some reason, it just is women. I don't know why it is. It's just one of those jobs that, women tend. I mean, there's a lot of male publicists, but it is typically a woman doing the job. I don't know why that is. I mean, we're really good project managers for one, so I think that's probably part of it. It is a very project management heavy. Like, you have to be organized as hell. So I think that's probably why.
I know a lot of women that are just naturally good writers.
Yeah,
and I don't know whether that maybe has something to come out of it.
I mean, for sure. All of those things. I have no idea why, but it just is. Maybe it's just one of the only jobs they let us have at the beginning of the music industry. Who knows?
Okay, we're laughing, but that's terrible to say let us have. That's just awful, right?
I mean,
I'm not saying it's not true. I get what you're saying.
It's like, I've been in the music industry for, I think, just over 20 years now. So obviously I've seen some change, and we are obviously in a much better place, both for women in positions in the music industry and for women artists as well. There's a lot more of them, which I love to see. I think that's incredible, and I hope that continues. And there's a lot of women within our industry in Canada that have done a lot of heavy lifting to make that happen. Those things don't happen by themselves. They don't happen without, the women before me pulling me up, or my generation pulling the people up as well. All of that stuff is really important. And I think it's becoming a lot more understood that, having gender equality doesn't mean you lose something as, a cis hetero white man, you know what I mean? Like, you're not losing something by giving other people opportunity. No. We don't live in a meritocracy, and we never did. And so if you think that you got your job at the top, and I'm speaking to the universal you as a white man, just because you were the best person for it, like, I'm here to tell you that is not the case. So, there's
100%.
And there's a lot of people that can do that job, and they might be different color than you. They might be a different gender, different, sexual orientation, whatever it is. They might be disabled. All of these things all factor in to equality. And so, I think in the music industry, which is, typically a place that hasn't been really kind to not just women, but minorities across the board, we are in a way better place. And and my ears are thankful for it because of the amount of music that I get to listen to from artists that I wouldn't get to hear otherwise. And also the women within the industry who are working incredible jobs, not just as publicists, but as artist managers, working in the live space, doing all sorts of things within the music industry that, have been typically dominated by men. I like to see that.
Well, I really appreciate that. That's a really great response. And it makes me ask another question, though, because I'm always... No, it's not crazy. It's just I'm really interested in learning. So I've been able to see... I've been able to... Because since starting the podcast, I paying more attention to different things, particularly the way people are promoting or pitching themselves, or even the pitches that I get. There was a time where you would never pitch yourself as a queer artist. You would never pitch yourself, right, as a indigenous or a Métis artist, or you just wouldn't put a tag that identified you as the other, because you just spent your whole life, unfortunately trying to evade that tag and to blend in or make your life easier from the people that would make it difficult. But I'm seeing more and more. And I think I'm seeing, and I guess I'm just asking you as an expert in your field, if that's an accurate observation, that people are owning those things that used to be or felt problematic, perhaps, in the past. Is that an accurate observation?
Yeah, I mean, if the artist sees themselves as being queer as part of their artistic, experience, for sure. I mean, it's a conversation that I have with my artists. I mean, some queer artists would prefer if it wasn't there because that's not part of, their music. Like they don't want to lead with it, I guess.
Yeah,
but that's not to say that it's wrong if you do. It just really depends on what your artistic expression is, right?
Yeah.
And where you're coming from. And it just has to feel authentic to who you are. That's really it. I think when we get into trouble sometimes with marketing is when people can kind of feel that they're being marketed to, like just as an example is, companies all of a sudden deciding to queer it up during the month of June.
Yeah,
like that's great that's where we are, but that you're just being, they only care about you for that 1 month.
Yeah,
right. So you
30 days an ally, and that's it.
Yeah. So like that doesn't feel authentic, right? So you just have to make sure you're coming from a place that's truly you, and just if expressing yourself as an artist by using those identifiers works, then let's do it. And I think that's great. I think it's great that we live in a world that we can do that now.
Well, and we already talked about the next generation, but I think that's one of the other beautiful things about them is they love to try to hold companies and corporations accountable for whether they are 365 days an ally or just showing up, on the parade weekend. So
with their rainbows.
Yeah, but that's great. That's great that they want to hold people accountable for authenticity that way. I think it's awesome. And it's funny, like it's funny to me. I'm going to say it and be clear that it's funny to me because I'm an older cis white male who grew up actually in a super conservative Christian background. My earliest radical steps were just to listen to Christian rock and roll.
Yeah.
And I mean, my earliest exposure to all this, though it's like super not, there's nothing oppressive as in that bubble that the way we're talking about what's happened in these other people's lives. But the comparable to me was always watching how much bands, when they got more successful, did not want the Christian label, right? They would always be like, it's just my music, man. This is just about my music. And then that's just me and my life and what I believe or I think. And I maybe part of my original question was just like, because we're moving into an era where it just feels like there's such a challenge with how blended people want to be in the music scene with their political beliefs, like what is happening. Like Dan Mangan's social is very interesting the last couple of days because he's been publicly posting the comments he gets of people telling him to just stick to the music and to stop being political. And he's leaning into it, of course, which is typical Dan, and I think is fantastic. But I think there's a challenge in that blending, and I guess part of my curiosity, you already said you talk to artists in advance, but I'm wondering what the challenge is for you in publicity about how you navigate that with an artist making their choice. I've got friends in the band Hotel Mira, and the lead singer is also very vocal,
taking a stand. I've been watching I watch artist socials quite a bit, and I know Dan quite well, so I've actually talked to him about how he made the conscious choice to start being a lot more political, and I think that's fantastic. I think that if, being political is part of who you are, and I think in this time it's really important to do it, but to know that there probably are going to be consequences because not everybody believes in everything you say, like outside of politics, right? So, you have to be ready for the pushback, and, depending on what you're vocalizing, like if you're being pro-Palestine, that is going to have real world consequences, unfortunately. But I think that sort of activism is very, very important in this day and age. But yeah, like again, like Hotel Mira, they started doing it, and I'm so glad. But it does have effects on what happens. It had an effect on me too. Like I posted on my own stories, and I know, people were screen capping them and, showing. So I just was like, you panic a little bit. Do you know what I mean? And, it's really scary, but you have to just be firm in who you are and, do your values mean more? Or like for me, it's easy because I run my own company. So I can make those decisions. Maybe I'm going to lose some business because of it, but I know that going into it, right? And as an artist, I don't fault an artist that doesn't want to do it because they're afraid of losing opportunities. It's a very hard business, but I do commend artists that, do it and are brave enough.
And it's dicey for all the things we've already talked about, right? Artists having to be content creators. Well, what happens if you start making your content some of these other things and it starts to affect all the rest of it, and it starts to change your brand, for lack of a better term? But the pressure again, because it's a global world of all of these messages going out as well. So definitely, I think the new world feels a lot harder to navigate, in my perception, than that old world. It is. I could have opinions that just stayed with my bandmates, maybe. Yeah. And that's difficult for a lot of people to wrestle with now. But I definitely applaud the ones that do. And even the fact you talked about the way publicity used to not. Yeah, I mean, all of those services were label services. You only got them if you got a record deal with a company that did all the things. There wasn't a version of parsed out label services. And the pressure back then, because they would comfortably tell the artist how to behave, right? And as an artist, you kind of had to fall in line, because the whole thing goes away, if I don't stay in line with this one thing. Which is very different than at least the control and the power being back in the artist's hand now. If they, are choosing, to align, say, with an agency like yourself that would align with their values and have that power back, which I think is a really positive thing. So
it's just, I mean, you just have to be, just be yourself. And if, what you're posting is truly what you believe and is authentic to you, then you just have to, that's just the way it is. If you lose an agent or whatever because of it, you have to know that going in. Do you know what I mean? Like you have to know that when you post stuff that is divisive, which politics are, like more than ever these days, you have to know that it is going to piss some people off. There's a reason that Taylor Swift doesn't say one way or the other. So, and, she's already a billionaire, but, she wants to continue to make those billions. So,
yeah. That's a unique pressure none of us seem to understand yet. But, well, Jen, let me ask you this, and then we can wrap up. I appreciate your time and insights into all of these things. I think you have such a unique position and opportunity to be able to speak towards a lot of them and a lot of truth. So we started off talking about the podcast that you do, the FM podcast, and that it's very topical and you enjoy the educational part, which is kind of the cool thing, because I found myself very quickly starting to scan and looking topically for things like where I would want to start in that list of the things that interest me, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, sort of with what you know and what you've learned, or maybe it was just the way it happened in your own podcasts. I asked you before to talk about some highlight things. I'm curious in your podcasting, what has stood out, whether it was a topic that you've gotten a lot of response to, or whether it was a particular conversation with somebody. I'm wondering what stood out to you as like, this is really important. This turned out to be a really dynamic, important either topic or conversation.
I think it's probably the conversations that I have with people that live a life that I have no idea what it's like. So, talking to an indigenous artist or talking to a Black artist, about their music, but also about their experience. I think that those are the ones that are the best conversations. And because I have no idea what that experience is like, I'm just a white lady, right? So it is, or even a queer artist, I'm a heterosexual cis woman or a trans artist, it's like there's so many different, types of artists out there. And, not that is just who they are, but it is a part of, them making their music. I find those conversations to be the most interesting from my perspective. Anyway. Yeah. There's a lot of good ones. I just like them when the people like to chat. Do you know what I mean? Where
100%. Yeah.
Where I'm just like, all right, this took a turn. I'm just going to throw these questions away because apparently we're just going to have a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll have it all typed out, as you know, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't matter anymore. And you're just having a conversation. And those are my favorite ones, because it's just like, I don't need to look at the questions I had written out anymore. Obviously, we're just going to see where this takes us because I got no idea. And there's from doing it, there's nothing worse than when you start and you can tell they're not a talker. And you're going to have to do, those are the ones that scare me the most. Well, where you're just like, oh my God.
No, that's so true. Like, so one of the earliest guys I worked with, so I worked with Andy Schaaf. I found him on, I just lost the name of whatever the famous internet thing that we were all on before Facebook as musicians. But anyhow, we found him. MySpace. And Saskatchewan guy. Anyhow, started working with him early, had that relationship. And I've thought like, maybe I ask Andy to come back on and talk. And then Andy just doesn't like to talk. I mean, I don't think that's changed from when I knew him a dozen years ago either, really well. And I remember seeing him at one of these Western Canadian Music Award festivals that was in Edmonton. Maybe it was 2017. And he was on a panel with his manager talking about the artist-manager relationship. And I saw him in the hallway and I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, you don't like to talk, and now you're on a panel. And we had a good laugh about it. But I totally agree. Like, it's a lot easier to do the podcast when someone is like excited to talk and and just roll with it and see where it goes. So, is the hardest thing being a publicist with so many people? If somebody asks you what your current favorite is, do you feel like it's impossible to? You feel like you'll get trapped if you try to talk about your favorite music,
I always like, because I'm a total a playlist maker, and every year I make a playlist of my favorite songs and I just add to it throughout the year. And then, sometimes a song will stay on and sometimes it'll come off. And then at the end of the year, it's just like, these are my favorite songs of the year. And I always have to have a caveat saying I don't put any of my artists on the playlist because I can't, otherwise
you can't blur the line at all.
Well, because otherwise I have to put all of them on, right? And so then that's a different playlist, right? So it's when I talk about new music, it's generally, here's my artist, like these are the artists that I'm working with. Oh my God, you have to hear this. This is, and then there's also like, just like other music. It's kind of, they do blur, but I kind of keep them a little bit separate in a way, I guess.
Well, I mean, the very fact that you take things off as you go through the year, I think already makes you a unique kind of person. I don't know a lot of people who have the discipline or the desire, or whether it's just the controlledness of it to go and
it's just like, I listen to the playlist all the time, right? So sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm done with that song. You know, like
Yeah.
that's not going to make it to the end of the year. And sometimes it's just because the song came out in January, and unfortunately, it's not going to make it
I
until.
just think it's incredible. Most people add, and then that's it. That's their only activity on Spotify. So I think that's an incredible trait to learn about you, Jen. So
I'm a music lover.
well, that's
Told
really
you.
obvious. That's absolutely obvious. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this out of your day, and even, you know, whatever you got going on. And maybe you're at 60, I think I saw 60 episodes on your podcast now,
Yeah,
or more,
we're going to be
which is
starting
great.
a new season soon. Like when I started the podcast, I was going to do it every week. And then I quickly saw how hard it was. I did like 20 episodes, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do seasons now because I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. I was similar but different. I was like, I'm going to do seasons, but then I'm like, I was the rookie who was like, I'm going to try to make this go longer than what, and so everyone around me was like, are you going to be done? Are you going to finish your season? Are you going to take a break? Because it was getting hard to keep it rolling
Yes.
as a side hustle. And yeah, I got to 16, and then I was like, this feels like a natural, I'm taking a break. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I'm starting a new season soon, and I only do 10
that's great.
episodes a season. But yeah, it's coming up soon. So just follow Fritz Media on all socials to find out when, or you can follow me on Instagram at Jenny Fritz. Yeah,
Awesome.
it's really easy to find me.
Yeah, but thanks again for your time and your insight. I appreciate it, and I wish you all the best in your company. I look forward to maybe seeing you around at some of the things, maybe the big things
Soon,
where
I'm
people
sure.
get together.
Yeah,
So
we'll be
okay,
somewhere in a room together soon, I'm sure.
that'll be great. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Jen.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Hey, I'm Alexi. Stick around for post fame with me and my dad. Oh, I found it. Hey! I see what you did. That's a fake friend.
Yeah, that's funny.
What? Okay.
Well, you said you have lots to talk about, so let's talk. What do you have to talk about today?
Okay.
Talk to
the
me.
first thing I was gonna say to you is I finished listening to the episode just now, and I went back a little bit because sometimes I forget things. But I feel like I had a couple points when I was listening that I was making mental notes of like, oh, we could chat about this, we could chat about that. And then you, I'm going to say boldly, you made it seem like it was bold of you to ask, but asked her about your observation that more women were in her role, like in your perspective. And I was wanting,
I felt like I've seen more
Yes.
female publicists,
Yes.
and whether she concurred with that.
yes. And she did, right? Like she mostly concurred. I
Yeah.
don't know. And I was like, oh, like I found that bit very interesting. And I was like, I'm not gonna bring it up. Like we've already done the whole woman talk like once or twice. But then it was interesting because you were getting into the why, which I thought was really interesting to hear, like your thoughts as a male, and then her kind of response. And the first thing that came into my head when you brought it up was organization, and that was hit right away. Is that like a lot of like women are program managers because they can manage a program, which like
you're identifying how what came up. Yeah, okay. So what you're saying is like the thing that was in your mind that just was an instinctual response as
it's like
to why.
organization.
If there's some version of, not a negative version of gender stereotype about how one gender might excel at some things.
No, just like
more,
the fact that like
or-
women generally, not
Okay.
like more than, not in a comparison way, but just like a lot of women are organized. And so that was the first thing that came to my mind. And then you guys hit it right away. But the other thing that I
Okay.
thought of that you guys didn't hit, but your conversation made me think of, and it kind of leads back to other conversations you had with females who like are in the spotlight, is like I feel like girls generally are raised not by like their parents, but like raised by like in a society in a way that they grow up much more observant of their own actions, but how they're perceived and what's being perceived around them. Which is why I also think that girls are way more susceptible to like trends. Like, right, when people think of like trends, like trendy clothing, trendy hair, all of that, you think of like women. But I wonder, I don't know, your conversation made me wonder, like, if girls are raised to be more observant of like what's cool and like what's popular because they're observing like what's being picked up around them because they're thinking about themselves in like social situations and they're raised to watch themselves. Like, maybe women also, and not even in comparison, but just generally excel in that kind of a role, like a publicist, because they're watching.
Because of their awareness skills.
Because of their awareness skills. And like, maybe it is a comparison thing, but like, I don't know. From my 20 years, like, I don't know a lot of guys who grew up like that way, like the way that.
No, I know what you're saying.
So I'm like, maybe that's like.
Well, I think what's.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say like maybe that's almost like a skill.
No, it is. I think what's interesting, what you're pointing out, and this isn't all of the story, so I want to make it really clear.
Yeah,
but
no.
What that makes me think of that's interesting is that part of what you're alluding to, at least in my mind, is a set of skills that are conditioned, right? Which is different than, because I started off by saying the question, are you like suggesting just those sort of stereotypical gender-based abilities as if like they're just inherent to, you know, which version of sex you're born as or something, which again, we're using only two of, you know, the way people even understand that now. But you're sort of alluding to, and I think it's actually really interesting, is a conditioned set of skills because of how they're raised in different societies, you know, in our world, in our societies, which have been going for a while, long enough to have conditioned women to either, as you're saying, have strong perception skills, strong observation skills, strong organization skills, whatever those things that they end up being conditioned, which, you know, and the reasons for those conditions would be obviously hours of conversations as to where that comes from. But I do think that it's an observable thing. I think that is true. And you're right in the sense that, you know, again, like I can only have my personal understanding from how I was raised, you know, as a male, and then what I've tried to learn or understand or observe, which is different. And that, you know, it's true when it comes to perception and observation skills and whether or not I had to be hyper focused on what people thought about me, or even down to kind of core themes of like how that weaves into validation and my reason that I think for being or having attention or getting validation, or those sort of core needs that all of us as people have, that I and many of the people I grew up with, I'm making the assumption, kind of as men, relatively in comparison, skated through a lot of life without a hyper awareness or a hyper focus on those things. So all of those things contribute to a conditioning, and it sort of ties into what she said. So the part that really hit me, since we're talking about all this, and I don't know why, it just sat with me, but I love the fact that she's sort of just bold enough to call it out, which is great because like we know each other. We're not necessarily friends, right? And so, you know, people might not always go on someone else's podcast that they're not friends with and just say it like it is. So I really admire that. And the part that she really told it like it is was basically saying to a lot of men out there that if you think that the position you have is because you earned it, you're fooling yourself. Yeah. And that's really admittedly hard to hear as a man because, you know, the truth is like all of us are people, right? And we're all humans. And I'm wrestling and struggling every day in my entire life, right? and I want to be validated, and I want to be understood, and I want to be seen. I want to do something and feel like I did it well, and I want that acknowledgement of other people if I can, because it meets kind of a human core. And all of those things, it's hard because you feel that piece get invalidated if somebody says that, right?
Yeah.
But the important thing is the both and, which is where I'm really settling into these days, is that, so the truth is that's hard to hear for a good reason, because I'm just a person who's worked really hard, and I feel like I've earned the things I've had to work hard for.
Yeah.
But I should also be able to recognize that this whole entire other part of the population has had a different experience as to what earning something means compared to me. And if I can't both feel like I should feel good that I have worked hard and earned things, but also recognize that people have had a different experience than me, and that maybe there is truth to the fact that the way that the path to earning it for me is very different and easier in general than other people. If I can't see that, right, then I'll never be an ally. I'll never be able to be a part of breaking down those barriers of stereotypes as a man. So I think that's really important to get called out, and I appreciated her for doing so.
Yeah. I like the bluntness a lot.
She's great that way.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think that's good conversation, and I'm glad that you didn't leave it off of your list just because you think that we've done it already. I think it's not a bad thing. I mean, that's in our world, right? It's not everyone else who listens world. Like, let's just be honest. It's not like everybody listening has listened to every podcast episode either, right?
It's also
not
weird
a bad thing to keep talking.
You know
about.
what? When I was also thinking that, it's so weird. I was like thinking like, oh, I don't want to bring it up because we've talked about that before. But I was like, it's still a good conversation. And there was also a piece of me that it's like, it's also, and this is so terrible, but it's so rare for me to like have a conversation about this topic, like in general, with like a man, and not feel like, or not like come out of the conversation feeling like frustrated or like negative about it. Like, because generally, like, that's how I feel like with these conversations with men, and a lot of my like female peers feel. So then it's like maybe it's because you're my dad, but also I think because you've done a lot of like learning and growing and making yourself aware. But it's like, I was like, oh, like, actually I do want to have that conversation because like I know it'll be a good conversation with you. And then I like caught myself thinking that, and I'm like, that's so crazy. Like, I was talking to my friend about it today, and I'm like, oh, the fact that I'm like good to have those kind of conversations with my dad, because I know he's like not a frustrating man to talk to about like these kind of things. But it's
I'm really glad to hear that, actually. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, I still wrestle with sometimes, like I just said, like it triggers a defensiveness. And I think you probably experienced that if you ever tried to talk about it with other men or young men who think that they're trying to be open-minded, but really they're just trying to get their point across, their own point, right? And they get frustrated because they feel like they don't get to be heard as a rule now.
Yeah.
And those are the things they fight so hard to express, and they don't realize that they're just snowballing the problem, right?
Yeah.
And the willingness to just say, to set aside your own right to be heard sometimes is like, some people just can't do it or don't want to do it. And I'm not saying it's always easy, but you can't start unless you do that. So anyhow, that's what I've learned.
Yeah.
But okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate that you'll have those conversations with me. So thank you.
Ruby water?
Okay, well, that probably took over. I don't know what else you wanted, if that was all the things that you wanted to talk about.
Well, that was it from the podcast.
You said you had
there was
a
few, but they were just, like...
Okay.
Like, they were, like, interesting, but I'm like, they were interesting to bring up and then be like, yeah, cool, and then move on. Like, just like...
Not as interesting.
Not as interesting. Okay. But we were going to talk about Ruby Waters. Do you want to hear something? because
Yeah.
you have to now because we're on a podcast. But we were both saying like, oh, I feel like I've heard this song. I feel like I've heard this. I feel like, we were both kind of alluding to like, we just started really delving into Ruby Waters, but there was like a familiarity in the songs and in like the person. And we were like, that's weird. I was doing Googling and so much stuff was coming up, but all of it was like just giving me the same feeling. It was like pointing to clues, but it wasn't like a clue as to why. Like, Cold War Kids, Cold War Kids?
Yeah, very well.
She was with them on some segment of one of their tours. Like I found an Instagram post of theirs and it was like underneath it, like with featuring, and not all of the tours, just like a leg of like some tour. They featured her. And I'm like, maybe it was like through something like that. Her older, do you know Dallas Green?
Yeah.
That's her older brother, I think.
What?
Yeah, there was some article about it. Because her parents apparently were in a band that she got to be part of for a little bit or something. I could be spewing misinformation right now. But like her parents were like...
Okay, just stop for a second. So just to be clear, Dallas Green, is the main guy from Canadian band City and Colour, who've been pretty big for years, right?
Yeah.
And before that, he was like also part of, how did I just forget the name of his big, like, more hardcore Canadian band? Doesn't matter.
City and Colour?
Dallas Green, well, no, City and Colour is his like acoustic-y band.
Oh, yeah.
But anyhow, so, okay, that's crazy.
Yeah, so then I was like, because I Googled her name to like look around for like, why do we both find her so familiar? And then there was
I'm live fact checking you right now. It does not say that they're related.
Dallas Green sister, and it says musician Ruby Waters.
Yeah, but here I'm saying he's closely associated with Ruby Waters because she's been a consistent opening act of his.
No, I have like 2 different links here that are saying it. Facebook.
My goodness. Oh yeah, Facebook is really
Rum
reliable,
Live.
So that's right.
No, where's that?
Okay, well now that I added the word sister to my Google keyword, although I'm not using Google, I'm using Brave. Pitch out there for the Brave browser. Get away from Chrome. Ruby Waters, yes, it says younger sister named Ruby Waters.
Yeah.
Performance, yeah. Blah, 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 blah.
Okay. Maybe we heard about her somehow through that grapevine.
No, I think it's the song Sour Patch. I think Sonic was playing it on the radio and I noticed it and came back and looked it up. And then because of that, the name sticks, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then I recently, like, everybody knows, like, you play a certain playlist or a couple of bands, and then Spotify seems to always want to start suggesting something right away. And she has a song called Wet T-Shirt. This is going to sound terrible because people are going to start reading into it. But for some reason, Spotify keeps like playing that song at the end of many other things that I'm playing. Like it seems whenever I'm done a playlist or something,
it's just like throws it on.
Like, yeah, that song gets thrown on there all the time. One of the song Car by Royal Otis.
Yeah.
One of their newer singles that keeps getting thrown on all the time. To everything, no matter what I play, it keeps coming in. So this Ruby Waters, and then this morning I throw it on and I'm like, I'm going to just start playing it all the way to the gym.
And we were like,
so, right. Well, and then I recognized that song Supernatural, and I recognized the song that had 27 million streams, Quantum Physics. So I've heard these things somewhere in the ethos.
I know.
And then I saw her name
floating in our ethos, but we never like really locked in.
Well, and her name's on that new little folk festival down by the river in our city, Edmonton.
Oh my goodness.
Coming up in a couple of weekends.
That just hit for me. That was it. That's why I knew her name.
It's like at the top of the poster. Yes. It's like the headline.
Wait,
name.
That's really cool.
Because Boy Golden is playing that as well, right?
And I was seeing those posters because you had Boy Golden on.
Yeah. So all the dots
that's
connecting.
What I was looking for on Google's all night, and then you just answered it for me.
Yeah, and I So this is the fun. I'm going to be a little transparent about what it's like to be starting and doing a podcast because I'm still in my first year, second season, but still, we're only 8 months in,
Yeah.
really. Um, and so the whole world of like, people should know how does this work, right? And then it's like, oh, I think of somebody I would like to have on the podcast. And then you immediately start to categorize, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that a realistic or is it not realistic? And then so I've had this instance a couple times where I'm like, I like this, where I hear some songs. I hadn't really been too familiar with the name. And then I'm like, they would be really awesome to have on the podcast. And then I go and I look and I'm like, oh, 27 million streams, 2 million streams, 3 million streams, 4 million streams. And I'm like, they're not going to want to be on the podcast.
But at the same time,
As if they're too big or something. I don't know.
but at the
It's
same
not
time,
true. I know.
playing at the
It's,
same thing as Boy Golden, who you just had on, like the scope isn't
I
so
know.
far
I
off.
know. And she's doing like kind of like acoustic sets at some of the radio stations
She,
that would be in the same like ecosystem and sphere
well,
that
yeah.
I've seen YouTube clips
But
about.
I was looking at her
So
Instagram, and she had like a little 3-show tour called the Soup Can Tour, and it was in like Squamish, and then 2 other places in BC, like 2 other smaller towns in BC, and it was like a $20 ticket, and like you had to bring 3 soup cans for like the
yeah.
soup thing. And I'm like, Squamish and these other 2 places, I'm like, those aren't even like that. Like, it's not Rogers Place. It's like a
Yeah.
place in Squamish. Like, not to
Well,
say
I
that that's not
think it makes
successful. That's very successful and awesome. But
well, no, there's a way you build a career, and I was gonna say it makes way more sense if she's the sister of Dallas Green and related in City and Color, and who did the whole growing up cutting your teeth by playing everywhere you can
yeah,
play, right? Across Canada, which you have to play a lot of non-traditional music venues and a lot of different kinds of gigs just to stay busy in this country. So if she has that work ethic, that's not surprising, but also very cool. Did your light just go out? You haven't charged it for a long time? Way to go, Lexi.
I actually haven't charged it since you
Good
bought it
thing.
for me.
Oh my God. Sometimes you're still a teenager. To me, that's okay. It's okay because we haven't ever done any video production of our post-fame
That's because you're
segment,
embarrassed of
so
me.
that's totally fine. No, it's because you refuse to use better equipment.
Okay, I'll get on
No,
it.
that's not why. That's not why. Maybe soon, but not season 2 because I had my hands full going into season 2. So maybe season 3.
Yeah.
That's okay. So we've spent all this time talking about Ruby Waters just because of all these cool, like tying it all together, which I think is really kind of fun when that happens,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the songs are really good. And I just want to make sure I clarify because I say this on a podcast and then it goes out to the world and it may be 25 people right now. It could be 2,500 down the road who listen to it and think, oh, Glen's Spotify just picks up songs by young women called Wet T-shirt. That's not the fact. It's all these other things we're talking about why Ruby Waters is making it into my playlist because she's connected to other artists. I just want to make sure that that's really clear in case things
You
come
should,
up.
because if you've seen the Instagram post she used to promote that song, I would really want to clear that up. Because it's full nude pics in the ocean or in the water. So,
well, don't tell me that
Please.
now. Oh, geez, Lexi. Like,
I'm just being honest. I think it's good that you cleared that up.
oh, I cleared it up without even knowing how bad that. I wouldn't even brought it up if
That could have been worse.
if I had known that. Oh, okay. Thank you
Yep.
for looking out for me. I appreciate it as always. With that, we probably don't have anything else.
I don't think we
chat
need to
about
say anything
tonight.
else.
So, yeah, I don't think so.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, love you.
Okay. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.